Hello, no cinematic intro today because there are so many questions to answer. So grab yourself a cup of something delicious. I have some fennel tea and I'm going to answer the question that was asked the most. Last episode I asked you on my Instagram and also on the last week's video, and everybody wanted to know, do you know the gender of the baby? As you can see now, hang on, let's go to this camera. It's quite big. Any last minute guesses? So many of you have been guessing that perhaps it's a girl because I'm carrying differently than I was with Gian Franco. Gian Franco was a lot lower and this feels a lot higher. It's quite big. Second pregnancy, I guess that's normal. But actually we are having another boy. And perhaps the reason that it looked a bit different is because the baby was actually transverse, and I have been doing so many exercises over the last 7 days to turn the baby, and I think it worked because we just had an ultrasound and the baby is head down. I'm so excited. Although a lot of friends have had cesareans, I just really wanted to have a natural birth and to not have to rely on a cesarean just in case. It's quite a way from the farmhouse to Florence, so if we want to get to the hospital where I'd like to give birth, it's like 2.5 hours or two hours more or less. So I am thinking that worst case scenario, if I have to give birth on the side of the road, if I can do it just the normal way without a cesarean, that would be preferable, as safer. Don't worry though, that's not the plan. The plan is to obviously get to the hospital. How do we feel about having 2 boys? Excited. Honestly, we went through that health scare, like with the baby potentially not being viable and everything, and the miscarriage earlier this year in February. So to see that it is healthy is just everything that matters. As a female, obviously there's a part of you that wants to also experience what it's like to have a girl, but I'm excited to see what this little boy will be like, because looking at our friends, their children have such different personalities, and I can't wait to see what personality this little boy has. And I'm sure that Gian Franco will be most pleased to have Fratellino, a little brother, to play with. If you have any experience with having 2 boys, now's the time to give us some advice. I do feel though that some of the things people have said about boys has not necessarily been accurate with Gian Franco. Like he tends to be able to focus for long periods of time on things. He's very precise. He doesn't break things. He's very precise with how he moves things around. And so I don't know. We'll see. But I'm just so excited and so grateful to be at this stage of the pregnancy. And I'm at 33 weeks. So yay! Thank you for your support. Next question is, how do you maintain the fire in your relationship with Guido, with my husband? Well, I don't know whether it's the best advice. I think every couple has to find what works for them, for their personalities, but we make a lot of time to eat together. It's really important. It's like a moment when obviously we have both a deep love of food and eating, but it's a really important thing that we do. And we obviously, working from home makes a difference. So we eat breakfast, lunch and dinner together. They always say that the first year of having a child is the most difficult for a couple. And I was breastfeeding every 2 hours, night and day. And I was doing that for well over a year, about 15 months, I think. And I know that they say sleep when the baby sleeps. Probably that would have been good. It has definitely benefits because when you're sleep deprived, everything suffers. But I really just didn't want to miss out on having an evening meal with Guido and watching a film afterwards. It's a really special time for us. It's a time when when we finally got Gianfranco to bed, which varied because sometimes it would be 7, sometimes it would be 10 o'clock at night. Whenever it was, we would wait to eat after until after he'd gone to bed, and so we can enjoy a meal together. And then we also enjoy watching a film together because we have that proximity, like you're close by and we're bonding because we're laughing or we're engaged in watching some political thriller, or we're just talking about what we're watching. And it's a way for us to unwind and not necessarily just always be talking about parenting decisions or work or logistics. It's a time for us to escape a little bit into a film and share that. It works for us because we're both night owls too. I'm a night owl and a morning person, and I find that during this pregnancy I have had a nap almost every afternoon. We like taking naps together, also on the weekend if we can take a nap together, because Gianfranco still has an afternoon nap every day. So that is a time that is really lovely for us, and it's afternoon naps are very, I think, intimate, and obviously that means we will get a little bit more behind in our work, but it's a nice time for us to come together. And I think, honestly, therapy has helped us as well, because you can't be flirtatious or playful with a partner if you're feeling the stress. And every day has a certain amount of stress. Therapy helped us because it was meaning that no matter how busy we got, we were always making a time every week to check in on our relationship. Unless you have that objective person and you make that space to just talk about what is working and what perhaps could do with some improvement, then sometimes you don't actually make changes, because before you know it, 6 months has passed, a year has passed, and we're still fighting about that same thing. So for us, therapy has been really useful. Once you communicate well, I think that clears the air for you to be playful. And playfulness is so important because you need some lightness. You need humor. You need to laugh together in order to have that attraction, I think, in an ongoing monogamous, committed relationship. You may not need it if you're doing casual hookups and stuff like that. Perhaps you're just turned on by the visual or the novelty. But I think in a committed relationship, you need to have that clear head in order to be playful and flirtatious, and that's what works for us. On this topic, if you will indulge me just for 60 seconds, I would like to thank BetterHelp, who are kindly a paid partner of my channel on this episode. And I have spoken about them before. They offer online therapy via a call, via messaging, via a video chat. You might want to try them if you're just not sure about therapy and you just want to give it a go and see if it works for you, because they have that feature of being able to, free of charge, change your therapist if you are not happy with them. And that's quite crucial, because that's the main thing. People that don't have a good experience with therapy generally haven't had a good personality click with the therapist. BetterHelp has all of these credentialed therapists who are there ready to be matched with you, usually within about 2 days. And then if it's not feeling good, you just click a button and you try someone new. And they are offering a discount to all of you if you click on my link. That also helps me, of course. I shall put that link on the screen, betterhelp.com/Kylie, but I'll also put it in the description box down below. There was another question that relates to actually therapy that said, where 2 other people, they asked, how do you deal with hardships, and what were the most difficult times in your life, and how did you overcome them? And do you want me to tell you a little story? I'll just tell you a very quick story. It's basically one of the times in my life that I felt the most depleted, the most antisocial. I'd ended a relationship with someone that I was still in love with, and I ended it just because he had some psychological issues that I was worried wouldn't be healthy for our future children. But it was so difficult. I was so heartbroken because I had to leave like what was essentially the love of my life, and I hadn't ever felt that before. I'd had beautiful relationships with people that I cared deeply about, but I'd been proposed to several times before, but I had never wanted to really say yes. And this was the first time when he asked me that I wanted to say yes, and I just couldn't. But I was still in love, and I felt so tormented by it because I cut off all communication so I wouldn't be tempted to go back. And I just became a recluse, and I was living in Rome at the time. And I had a period where I tried to be social, and then it just didn't. I gave up. Everything reminded me of him. I felt this deep longing, this yearning, and confusion about my decision, about what had I done, and how difficult it was to leave a relationship that wasn't healthy, but that was still so beautiful and passionate. And I'd never felt that understood and alive and connected to another human being. And I just couldn't do anything. I went through a very dark period. I even stopped cooking, and that for me is huge. But eventually I got myself on my little bicycle in Rome, and I would ride to see my therapist. And I was at the point where I didn't want to talk to friends. I didn't want to burden my family, and I wasn't seeing anyone. There was a period, I think, where it was 6 months and I didn't see a single friend or family member for 6 months. I was just making art in my little apartment, eating, cooking, and trying to mend my heart. And journaling really helps. I filled what felt like hundreds of journals. Even things that you might feel angry about, it's better to get them out in the text first before saying them to someone, I find, because then you can sort through them and decide, is this how I'm really feeling, or am I just reacting because of this insecurity, or am I just reacting because I'm fatigued? And I find that the written word gives me so much more clarity, and then helps me decide how I want to articulate it to the person that I might have some pain or some issue with. It takes the fire out of your emotions. Like, it helps you to feel rational. So you're scribbling away, and your hand can only go so fast. So whereas sometimes you might just yell something at someone in the heat of the moment, if you write it down, it helps you exhale all that, whatever you're feeling. It could be frustration or envy or resentment or fear, and it helps you slow down and just say, okay, what am I actually feeling here? What's going on? And then you might decide that, no, I really do feel that I need some change, or I need this person to treat me in a different way, and that's fine. But at least then you can metaphorically and literally take a breath and then decide how you want to proceed. What skincare do you use? Your skin is magnificent. Oh my gosh, that's so kind of you, but it's not the truth. My skin isn't magnificent. It's just good lighting. I think if my skin does it with some things when I'm editing, I'm like, gosh, this looks not so fresh. But I'm actually the worst person to ask about a skincare or beauty routine, because I don't have one. I'm not good at keeping them up. I'm a bit skeptical of the cosmetics industry, because I see all these tutorials where people lather on like 8 different products, and I would do it if I believed that it would have an effect on my skin. I'm just like everyone else. I would love to have dewy, beautiful skin, but I don't really believe it. I think as long as you wash your face and put on a little bit of moisturizer. My philosophy is more about looking at what I put into my body, and I think that you see the results in your skin. I know I do. just based on what I'm eating. Like, for example, the juice that I have every morning is very detoxifying, very cleansing, because celery, lemon, ginger, spinach, cucumber, and yeah, that's it, and water, and that's how I've started every day of the pregnancy. And I also eat just so many greens because I love them, and I do that because my sister always recommends the greens for digestion, but I really love the bitterness to counter whatever salty thing I'm eating. So it might also help that I've given up coffee, because they do say that coffee can give you like dark circles under the eyes, and that has been hard because every time I smell it I crave it, but ever since we were trying to conceive Gian Franco, I gave up coffee. Then while I was pregnant, then while I was breastfeeding, then when we were trying to conceive this next one, and so then I'll be probably breastfeeding for another year and a half, so it's going to be a long period of my life without coffee. But I think my skin has benefited from it. I think, maybe, I don't know. Another 2 people I think asked, who does Gian Franco look like? Everywhere I go, people say he looks like me. And if you look at little photos of me when I was a baby, it's, yeah, very, very similar. Honestly, he just looks like a little cherub. He's got these big cheeks and these big eyes, and he's so, he looks just like a little angelic, chubby cherub. I think he looks also very much like Guido, but at the moment, the comment that we get the most when we go out is that he looks like me. Lots of people asked, where do I get my clothing? Where do I get my dresses? From lots of different places. I might make a whole dedicated video on this, but some labels that I love Max Mara, I love Rouge, I love Cézanne, I love, what else? There happens to be this little secret store which is not very well known, and it's outside of Florence, and it's they stock all this current designer clothes, all these current designer collections, but they're for sometimes like a third of the price, and it is incredible. And Guido and I always go there, and he says, "Don't tell anyone where it is," because they only have a few of the sample sizes. I used to fit into before I got pregnant, but that nobody seems to know about it. So I do go there, and I get a lot of beautiful designer clothes that are a third of, or even like less. Buonasera. Do you remember this kitchen? This was the original kitchen that I was in when we started dating. Do you remember when I painted all these tiles here? This is our apartment, which is a part of the property of Guido's parents, and we still keep it because Guido's up here once a week. And we were here today because we were celebrating Guido's father's 90th birthday. So I thought I've actually got to make a pear tart for tomorrow, because we're going to something tomorrow where I want to bring a pear tart, and in fact I'm going to be filming that as well. So I thought I would answer some of your questions while I'm cooking. I'm going to take off my rings because I'm going to just massage in the butter as I'm talking to you. But one of the questions was, how much time do you spend Guido's family, or why don't we ever see Guido's family, Guido's parents? And the reason is because, well, first of all, Guido's father is quite a bit older. He's 90 years old. And also, because we don't see them as much, I find that I want to just be really present when I'm with them and not filming, whereas with my parents, because they're on the property with us, there's a lot more time. So, and also, Guido's mother is like my mother. Neither of them like to be on camera. They just feel shy, which is something that I found is common to most females, regardless of age, because I think women in photos or on video are just generally criticized more by both women and men. So whenever I'm filming interviews and things, I find women are so understandably so self-conscious, or they're just worried about what they say, and it's a sad thing. But I think women in general, especially if you look at comments on YouTube, women are generally judged more. So I don't blame my mother or my mother-in-law for saying, "Oh, I'd rather not be on camera," and that's why you don't see them. But we do see them. Guido comes once a week because once a week he's in the office in Florence, so he sleeps the night here and has dinner with his parents. And I try to come every fortnight to spend some time with them and bring Gian Franco. I'm very lucky because a lot of people don't have a good relationship with their in-laws, and I got really lucky with them because I get on very well. I love your recipes. Do you ever feel overwhelmed of thinking what to cook? Thank you so much. You know what? I am a bit of a weirdo. I don't. I've always loved thinking, what's for dinner, or what's for lunch, or what should we cook? I don't know, it's just a strange thing about me. There's other things that I'm not so good at, like putting away clothes as soon as you get undressed. You know, my sister's so good at that, and yet she hates thinking of what to cook for dinner. So I think we're all different. My mother as well, she hates that question, what's for dinner? Whereas I don't know why, I just love it. I love food, and I've always been, just even as a little girl, I used to just love saying to my mother, oh, what should we have for dinner? What should we make? I recall how traumatic your first birthing experience was. Will this birth be at the same hospital? Quite a few people asked about this, and thank you so much for your concern. Yes, it was hard because we didn't really know where to go, but we found a hospital nearby, because I'm here in Florence, and we tried it, and we felt good about it, and but as good as one can feel, really, because I don't know, I keep hearing all these different stories. Looking up this hospital where I am going to give birth, and read this awful story of this woman just in August, a few months ago. This article was about this woman who was just bleeding, and she was trying to ask for someone to check her, and she asked like 4 times and was left alone, completely abandoned in a room, just like I was. And they responded so poorly to her. They just dismissed her and said she didn't know what she was talking about, and she was bleeding. She just said, "Can please someone just check me?" And they wouldn't even do that. And then at a certain point, after about 5 hours or so, suddenly she was like, oh my gosh, I can feel something is wrong, even though it was her first birth. And then all of a sudden they realized that, she had to go for an emergency C-section because she was about to die and lose the baby. And even then they said, well, get up and move into the other room if you want to be checked. And the husband of the woman next to her had to help her move because the nurses couldn't see that she was lost so much blood that she was too weak to move. Exactly the same as my situation in terms of like how rude they were and how dismissive they were. And fortunately she delivered the baby, but she just said it was just, this whole article was about how traumatic it was and how risky it was for her actual health, because it's not just about being treated poorly, it's about the fact that if she hadn't insisted, she could have bled to death. So yeah, I'm not exactly excited about having to deal with that kind of interaction, and particularly medical staff who just don't believe you when you're asking for something simple like, hey, can you just check why I'm losing so much blood? Advice to women who are scared of their biological clock. I'm 33 and it worries me a lot. And that wasn't the only one. There are actually quite a few more comments about having children and the biological clock. And it's a really difficult thing because I feel that I grew up in a generation where no one sort of educated us about fertility and how difficult it could be. And now it's very much in the media, and it's, people are talking about it on YouTube and just among friends. A lot more people now are admitting. I don't know any women who haven't had a miscarriage, for example. who have tried to have a child, who haven't had a miscarriage. And so it's normalized a lot more. But I think when I was much younger, we just didn't talk about that. And it was very much sort of talking about, like, I don't know, finding your soulmate or also traveling, seeing the world, cultivating a career that makes you happy. And all of these things are beautiful and super important as well. But I guess it would have been good for our generation to have, not just for women, but also for men, to have a bit more of an education or an awareness that fertility can be a hard thing. And I think one of the questions was, to me was, oh, did you have trouble? And another one was, did you conceive naturally or through IVF? And I was really fortunate, but I did leave it very late. But it wasn't because I didn't want children or I didn't consider it important. I had a lot of relationships, and the people I was in relationships with, almost, I would say, all of them wanted children, and we always were taking things seriously. Oh, grazie, amore. Taking things seriously and thinking about a future. But I was also very concerned about, because I could also see all the divorce rates, and I was really concerned about making a family with someone that then I would have to part from, or it could be abusive, or it could be just not even abusive, but just not a healthy environment for children to grow up in. So it's such a catch-22, because on one hand, you don't want to just marry the first person who says, I love you. Oh, thank you. Grazie. Because then if you have troubles down the line and you realize that you didn't know that person at all and you've had children, I just take that as a huge responsibility. If you're going to have a child, you need to stay with, you need to be in a really committed relationship where you both are thinking long term, and you're not just thinking, okay, if it gets hard, we can part ways and share the children. Obviously, lots of people do that. Now it's the norm, and most of my friends have parents who are divorced, but that was just really important to me. Guido really feels the same way, of like, no matter how hard it gets, like, we work at this. And also, on the other hand, what do you do? Because I just didn't meet, not for want of trying, I just didn't meet anyone that I fell that deeply in love with, or that I felt comfortable with starting a family with. So what do you do? It is really difficult. Of course, a lot of women are having babies a lot later now, and we're so much healthier, I think, now, and aware of how to take care of our hormonal health. Every time I've gone for visits, even though I'm a bit older, they've said, oh, wow, your blood pressure's really low. You're really in good shape. You eat well. I've never smoked. I've never drunk alcohol. So I'm hopefully my biological age is a bit lower, but you just don't know. There are really healthy people who just happen to have trouble, and there are so many reasons you can have trouble with fertility. I suppose my advice would be, there's not much you can do. Like, I have friends who would dearly love to be married and have a child, but if you're dating and you're putting yourself out there and you're working on yourself and you're not being too judgmental, you're keeping an open mind, what more can you do, really? And making sure you're choosing someone who wants children. It's difficult. There's not much more you can do. And I suppose the only thing I would say is, if you are in a relationship and you're thinking, and it is committed and you both see a future, don't wait, because you just don't know how difficult it will be. And some people, they don't feel the need to have children, and that's fine. But if you're thinking, okay, well, it's okay, I'm really sporty, let's just wait until we feel ready, or we feel financially ready, I think that's maybe a bit dangerous, because you don't know how difficult it will be. And also for men, I mean, they tend to say, oh, we can do all that later, we can settle down later. And so many people just want to, I want to travel, I want to get my dream job and make sure I'm passionate about what I'm doing for making money. But it's like, well, I don't know, missing out on the chance to have a child, or to, if you want to have multiple children, to have 2 children. I mean, that's something that I think can really traumatize people. So a difficult topic. I'm going to add a little bit of cold water. There are both younger people and older people who watch this channel, and I think it's a whole different thing now, dating. It's different from before. It's easy for people to say, oh, well, I knew, and I got married young, and my mother met my father when she was 19, but it's also just, I mean, she says it's also just luck that she happened to meet someone, and also because he was a fair bit older, and it was just luck that, I mean, they obviously work hard at the marriage, but it was luck that they happened to meet each other, and that it has lasted this long. You can't just say that everyone that's married has been emotionally mature and ready to commit. I mean, some people have children and get married without even thinking, and then there are other people who are just so deserving of a committed relationship and they don't meet the right person, and it's not fair. I wish there were a little bit more justice in the world in that regard, because everyone deserves to have love, and everyone deserves to have at least the possibility of having a child if they want one. And one of the other questions was, look at this pastry. It's going to be beautiful. I can feel it. That it's just going to be lovely. So I don't have a rolling pin, so I'm just going to use this bottle of wine to roll out my pastry. Can we order olive oil that you guys have from your land? It looks so nice. So many people asked that because last episode I was showing the new oil. No, Guido's family actually some people who are even in Italy asked if you could buy it, but they just sell privately to different clients and friends and things. So it's not sold on a website through, and it's certainly not shipped overseas. And I certainly found when I was trying to ship oil to my patrons, it was a nightmare. I had got so many that just never arrived. In Australia, it turns out you can't send oil at all. They won't even accept it. So I packaged it all up, and then that was all wasted. So it's quite complicated sending oil overseas. So unfortunately, no, you can't purchase it. But what you can purchase is a friend of Guido's, and I don't know if you remember this, but I did a video on his oil, which is award-winning, and they give you the possibility to purchase it online, and they're a lot larger operation than Guido's family, so you can order it. And come si chiama l'olio di lapo, amore?
Volmiano, Fattoria di Volmiano.
Fattoria di Volmiano? Il sito è Fattoria Volmiano. Okay, allora I'll put a link. But actually, if you wait, it's just the next episode, because that's who I'm going to see tomorrow. I will show you how you can buy his oil, and their oil is amazing. It's so good. Oh, someone's coming. Someone's coming. Hello. Hello. Oh, you have a fan for Mama? You have a fan? Can you fan me? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think one of the questions was, do you speak to Gian Franco? Il tavolo piscina. Il tavolo, sì. The cups. Take the 2 cups to Babbo. Take Babbo a cup of tea. There's 2 cups. Take 1 cup for Gianfranco, 1 cup for Babbo. One of the questions was, do you speak to Gianfranco in English? Yes. We speak to him in English and Italian. And I know definitely what everyone says, that it's good to just have one parent do their native tongue and one parent do the other language. But because my parents spend so much time with him and they only speak English, so it's sort of like they speak English to him only, exclusively, and Guido and I speak Italian to him. Although if we're all together, then Guido and I will obviously be speaking in English with my parents. So it's sort of a mix. But we've found it's amazing how Gianfranco now already understands the difference between English and Italian. So he will say something, like I will say something even quite simple in Italian that my parents understand, like pomodoro, for example, and everyone knows the word, well, not everyone, but my parents know the word pomodoro, it means tomato. But then, I will say to Gianfranco, I'm making a tomato sauce, and I'll say it in Italian, and then he will look to my mother and he will explain to her and my father and say, Mama's making a tomato sauce, and then he will look to Guido and say, Babbo, Mama sta preparando il sugo di pomodoro. So it's actually quite interesting to see how he already understands that some people need to be spoken to in one language and some another, and also. We just found it a little bit difficult. I know that the ideal is stick to one language, but it's just a bit hard. Like when we have lots of friends over who are Italian and all the kids are Italian, and I then want to be speaking to all the bambini and all the kids, and I will then speak in Italian because they don't speak English. So then Guido knows that his mama speaks Italian. Do you know what I mean? It's so it's just a bit complicated, and for honestly, it may not be the perfect way, but it's working for us, and I suppose the priority is also that he, so that he can communicate with other kids. It's quite important for him to be able to speak Italian well, and as my parents speak English and Guido and I speak English with them, he could be hearing English quite a lot. So we try to kind of keep Italian in the home as well. That's a bit of a convoluted answer, but that's what it is. And although a lot of people say, oh, if you keep it just to one parent, but, Sophie.
Ah, che male. Come va la torta?
Bene. Oh, someone's getting a cup of tea for Babbo? Ah, for Mama. A cup of tea? Oh, grazie. Grazie. Here we go, for Babbo. Guido, a question that was asked a lot was, would we like to have more children?
If they come.
If they come. Yeah, if they come, sure, why not? And I mean, I definitely...
I suppose it's
Yes?
not our choice at this point, so it's like...
Yeah.
If they come, we get them. If they don't, we are grateful.
Yeah, but some people actively take precautions. So
No,
I suppose no. We wouldn't mind having a larger family. And as I said, we started a bit late in life. But if we're blessed with another child after this, I don't feel as old as I am. So I wouldn't mind. I think we have the space, and living in the countryside, it's such a great place to raise children. Yeah, that would be a blessing. What's the hardest thing about living in Tuscany? Someone asked. Nothing. There, you see, there's a happy Tuscan, born and bred in Tuscany and never wants to leave. It's great. No,
It's not so efficient to work in, but
yeah,
obviously if you're in Milan or in Germany or in London, you can do much better work-wise, but
then you pay so much in rent and in restaurants and in See, ciao, ti vedo. Then, ciao, Gianfranco. Are you having a cup of tea with Babbo? Are you having a cup of tea at your little table? Yeah, then you end up paying so much in some of these cities that then it doesn't actually make sense in the end, even though you get a much bigger salary. Has having a child put a strain on your relationship with your husband? I wouldn't say so. I think obviously... Grazie, amore. Grazie. Che cos'è?
Una busta.
Una busta, ok.
Dalla babo.
Sì, ababo. I would say, like every couple, like we have our problems. So we're not perfect, and we, obviously have things that we fight about. But those things were things that we had before, while we were dating, and we just are working on them. And we've had a long road with Gian Franco and his sleep, and now he's finally sleeping well, and he sleeps in his own room, and he goes down relatively easy. But watching this little creature grow up and learn new things, and every day sort of wonder in awe at something new, it at least for me, it bonds me to Guido, and I love sharing it with him, and I love seeing him be a beautiful father, and I love going on that journey with someone, and you're shaping a little human together. It's what's more special than that, and it's definitely definitely a challenge to make it all work, especially because we both work. We have fairly similar goals with how we want to raise Gian Franco, so that helps that we don't tend to fight about that. I thought I would just add in a little extra part here, because although I didn't have postpartum depression, I had a really pretty great recovery physically after the birth, and my two pregnancies have been really quite good, and I haven't felt emotional or had any kind of anxiety, but I don't want to give the impression that it's just a walk in the park, because I know what it's like to be with a newborn screaming baby, or to be pregnant and just so fatigued, or the nausea, everything, and then feel like not only that, you look online or in your friendship circle and it seems like other people are just doing it so effortlessly and nothing is a struggle, and that's not completely been my case. Like it definitely was an adjustment. I had to adjust to the fact that I was doing so much more. I still do so much more with Gian Franco and do the majority of the parenting. And this is for a lot of women. I think it's up to you how you work. Every couple is different, and I know a lot of friends. I know a lot of males who are even, like, let's say, the primary parent. But I would say, in the majority of cases, talking with female friends and looking online at a lot of the really honest forums for parenting sites, there are just a lot of women who are struggling because a lot of them are working and maybe even bringing in more than their spouse, but then they're doing more than double of the duties for looking after the child or the children, and that's a big adjustment to make as a mother. It's hard to negotiate all of that and try to come to terms with it all, and what you've got to work out a whole new way of dealing with your body, managing your time, and also managing like watching someone else who doesn't have any physical hurdles to deal with postpartum or during the pregnancy, and watching them sort of still have a beautiful relationship with this child, but without as much work. And it's a hard thing to metabolize. Definitely, Guido is a beautiful father, and he has got so much better. But in the beginning, it wasn't so easy. He didn't even realize just how much I was doing, and I think although things aren't perfect, we are gradually getting to the stage where he's a lot more aware. And I've seen that with other couples as well, like the husband or the father will gradually become a lot more aware of just how much the mother is taking on. I have a friend who said to me, gosh, she said she hated her husband for the first 2 years and now is madly in love with him again, but because he made some big changes and because he realized that she was drowning and doing an exceptional job, but just nothing had changed in his life, and everything had changed for her. So definitely a difficult thing to navigate. From Wimbledon girl, 22, again, what is the gender of the baby? And is there anything you will try to do differently with your second? Will I do anything differently? I don't think so. I felt very calm going into like the role of being a parent, maybe because I am a bit older. I mean, it's not to say that we didn't have a lot of tough trials and so much with his, constipation and all the rest of it, but in the end it was just a matter of time and having him on the probiotics and there wasn't like some big mystery that we solved that now we're like, oh, we'll definitely do this with the second. Don't you think, Amore? Is there something that we would do differently with the second that we were sort of not regret doing, but like that we've learned from with Gian Franco? No. Like we were having dinner parties and Guido and I were tag teaming, going up into the room. Oh, you're sitting down? You're sitting down in your little chair? We would, and because we were like, doing to try and get out the gas and all the rest of it, we were like doing squats. So we would alternate and go up, and this was in summer. Guido would strip off his shirt. I would strip off my shirt when I went up because I was breastfeeding, and then Guido would strip off just because he was sweating so much. So we would be having this candlelit dinner party down in the garden, and then we would just take turns to run up and soothe this screaming baby who was supposed to be sleeping but was in pain. And that's the thing too, is like I was following this Canadian YouTuber who's a mother, and she has 3 children, and she was sort of giving all this lovely advice on sleeping and everything with her first 2, but then she had the 3rd one and she said, oh, it's so different, this child is so different. So I feel like you can have your ideas about child rearing, and maybe they work and they hold true for the first and the second child, but then when you get the third, when you get the third, I often hear people say, oh, this is so different. Oh, I think someone also asked about how do you, with Gian Franco, not eating sugar and eating so healthy. I could say, like, it's true that definitely throughout my pregnancy, I was always eating lots of vegetables. I love vegetables. I love greens. I like bitter things like this. So it's in my nature. And I ate a lot of greens and healthy foods during my pregnancy. And also Gian Franco sees us eating, like Guido's chowing down on spinach or whatever, or I'm there making my celery juice and lemon and ginger and everything in the morning, and so he gets excited because he sees us excited about it, but we can't necessarily pat ourselves on the back for it until we have this second one and see does he also eat as well as Gian Franco eats, because now he's a dream. He's curious and he eats everything, and he asks me for lettuce, he asks me for kale and things like this. But maybe the second one will come along and eat nothing, in which case it's not a credit to us, it's just his personality. So I think until you have multiple children, you can't necessarily be preaching and giving advice because you don't know to what extent it's your good parenting and to what extent you just got lucky with a child who sleeps or a child who eats. See? Do you use any special products for your hair? It looks so beautiful. Thank you so much. There were quite a few comments on that. Mama bravo. No, I don't really. I do like, for many years I've used Aveda, what's it called? Dry Remedy, I think it's called, as conditioner. And I only wash it once a week. I don't wash it frequently. But it's not fair to look at someone's hair during pregnancy, because obviously one's hair is always sort of a lot thicker and healthier during pregnancy. A question: what are the aspects you wish to emulate from your mother regarding growing older, good motherhood, and a good marriage? What are her words of wisdom? Oh, so many. I admire her for so many things, not just her marriage, but also how she handled parenting. And also she was working part-time, but she was always there for us and always just so present and created this magical childhood. She's also been very firm with us too. Like, we weren't coddled in the sense that if we were sulking or if we were not helping with chores, there would be consequences, and she was also very big on discipline, but it didn't feel like a threat or this angry authoritarian figure. It was just like there were rules, and my mother was very firm on them, but then there was also so much affection and warmth, and I don't know, that's a very difficult mix to be able to maintain, like to be able to give so much love and affection and openness and security, but then also say, this is how things are and these are the rules and you need to respect them and I'm not going to cave. And she not only was a great mother, but she also worked with children because she worked in a daycare. She said, my sister and I never once had a tantrum like out in public or even at home, like a real meltdown, like kicking and screaming and crying. And now it seems to be normal. And I listened to this parenting podcast, and an Australian one, and they just say, oh, this is so normal, this is what they all go through. And my mother just says, no, it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. She believes very much in sleep, and she thinks so many kids are sleep deprived and they're eating the wrong things and things that aren't helping their mood. So my mother was always very much about eating healthy food and having treats, but making sure that a child had eaten a really healthy diet so that they weren't on a sugar high and crashing. Or she said she would never take us out too tired or wait until we were sleepy. Like there were strict times when you have your nap, and we would always go to bed early. Most of the time, a child having a tantrum is just exhausted and they can't listen to what you're saying. You can't reason with them. I think someone else was asking about daycare as well, and I've read a lot of articles that have really make a lot of sense to me about that between being a newborn and 3 years old. That the most important relationship is with those, like that one-to-one, and those primary caregivers, and be it the grandparents or a babysitter or a mother or father or a combination of any of those, because so many people talk about socialization, but apparently socialization really is important from 3 years on, and then before that is so super important for an infant, a child, a toddler, to have that one-on-one interaction and be learning from a parent rather than learning their values, learning right and wrong from another child, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think too that this time goes so quickly, and I just want to appreciate it and take advantage of it. And I see how much he learns, and I see how his whole personality and his sense of right and wrong is really being formed right now. And we're lucky that we do have the possibility to work from home, but we've both made a lot of sacrifices to be able to do that. I don't obviously judge anyone who has to put a child into daycare or because they, have to work. What can you do? It's a really hard choices for parents to make. I think what I was saying in regard to my mother, because she worked in daycare, I remember going after school and just hanging out, and oh my gosh, the things I would see. Also, the things she would tell us when she came home. This isn't every daycare, obviously, but she would see so many people, and they would be on so great terms with they would put on a whole show. I'm talking about fellow colleagues of my mother's. They would put on a show for the parents and be like, look at this gorgeous little blah, blah, blah. And they'd be holding the little toddler and having a little interaction with them. And as soon as the parents walked out, they would just drop them, and they would be swearing and speaking poorly about the child and ignoring them or complaining about them, or so many terrible things. And that's not every daycare, but it did worry me a bit. And my mother was always someone she's a bit of a superwoman. She always gives her all to everything, and she gave everything even to other people's children as well. But she was just in shock about how duplicitous some of these daycare staff were. I think it's a different world. That was a long time ago. Probably now, I think, they say they give them a lot more feedback to the parents, and there we go. It's perfect. So now I'm going to do the frangipane filling, which, oh, hello.
Coming.
Someone coming. There's someone coming. Who is it? Gian Franco. That's it. Are we going over to have some dinner? Che dici a che ora vuoi andarci, amore?
Ore sono?
Le 6.
Una mezz'ora.
Ok.
Ma questo è Ponte Vecchio, Bubu.
È Ponte Vecchio. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
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 Some butter, a little bit of water. That's all we have time for. Sorry if I didn't answer your question. If you want to think about subscribing, it would make me so happy because I'm almost at 300,000. Thank you very much to those of you who have already subscribed. Thank you to my patrons. And also just remember that if you did want that link for BetterHelp, I'll just put it in the description box below. Okay, thank you for watching. I'll see you next episode. Alla prossima.